Good morning, students. Yesterday, we were studying about the most important and the most influential Mahajanpad during the early times, which is Magad, and we were discussing about the sources of information and knowledge about Magad. How the foreigners who have written their accounts and for different kings and rulers, and here for Magad we were talking about especially Megasthenes, who was a Greek ambassador in the court of Chandragupta Maurya. Okay, so he had the first-hand knowledge about the social structure of the Magad Empire, the political structure of the Magad Empire, how big the military was, the cavalry, the elephants, everything. How rich the kingdom was. So everything information has been gathered from there. Okay, now today we start with the second paragraph, which is a very important one here. That is, yeah, continuing with the same topic, that is finding out about the Mauryas. Ashoka was the first ruler who inscribed his messages into his subjects and officials on stone surfaces, natural rocks, as well as polished pillars. He used the inscriptions to proclaim what he understood to be Dhamma. Now, this is the word Dhamma which you would read very often, and this is the word Dhamma which changed the history of Asia and later the whole world uh, forever, because it was, students, you have to understand, Gautam Buddha was definitely in India, but the point is, you know, his teachings, yes, he it could have just gone with him, right? And at some point in time, people would have forgotten about it. But Ashoka was the one who gave enormous amount of state patronage to the faith of Buddhism. Okay, because he was heavily inspired and influenced by the teachings and the ideals of Buddhism. Okay, otherwise it could have just gone. Buddhism, it would have probably been confined to some fringes of today, some parts of India, and that is it. Had it not received that kind of state patronage that Ashoka, who then happened to be uh, one of the richest and the most powerful ruler of those times. His territory, right from present day Pakistan to present day Bangladesh, and of course most of South India. Okay, very few parts of South India, that is the southern tip of India, was outside the influence of Ashoka. So he had enormous amount of resources uh, that he had contributed, and he could have contributed to the spread and the popularity of Buddhism. And what he was heavily inspired by, one thing about Buddhism was the concept of Dhamma. And what was this concept of Dhamma? It was basically about, it appears to be a very simplistic kind of a concept of Dhamma or Dharma, which we used to say before Buddhists, um, right from the time of Rig Veda and Ramayana and Mahabharata, we always had been talking about upholding the dharma, upholding the path of righteousness, upholding what was right, okay, upholding what was uh, truthful, irrespective of the price that one had to pay. Okay, so Ashoka also believed in that, and this included, um, respect towards elders, generosity towards Brahmins and those who renounced worldly life, treating slaves and servants kindly, respect for religions, traditions other than one's own, and it also included a lot of other things, to be nice to animals, being non-violent, not killing animals. So a lot of things got added into it, but essentially it was about the path of truth, the path of righteousness, being nice to everyone, being nice to all the life. Okay, even if it meant the life of animals and birds and everything, the path of non-violence. So, administering the empire, that's the next topic. Uh, uh, There were five major political centers in the empire: the capital Patliputra. We are talking about the Mauryan dynasty, of course, the capital Patliputra, and the provincial centers of Takshila. Takshila is present-day Pakistan. Ujjaini, that would be present-day Madhya Pradesh. Tosali. Now, Tosali we don't hear much, but Tosali would be present-day Orissa. Okay, and Suvarnagiri is still very much around. It is somewhere, you have to understand, eastern Karnataka, you know, Suvarnagiri. And as the name suggests, it had something to do with gold, and it must have been a major supplier of gold at that point in time, and that is why it got this illustrious name as a Suvarnagiri, and all mentioned in Ashokan inscriptions. If we examine the content of these inscriptions, we find virtually the same message engraved everywhere, from the present day northwest frontier provinces of Pakistan to northwestern province of Pakistan today, means the areas bordering between Pakistan and Afghanistan, that is northern Pakistan and Afghanistan, to Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, and Uttarakhand in India. Could this vast empire have a uniform administrative system? Uh, Historians have increasingly come to realize that this is unlikely. The regions included within the empire were just too diverse. Imagine the contrast between the hilly terrain of Afghanistan and the coast of Orissa. That is true. You have to understand, students, that the great rulers, the successful rulers understood this diversity. They did not try to ensure that one shoe size would fit all. They did not try to make rules where everyone would have to, at least in terms, especially in terms of the social rules, where they understood that yes, there is so much of diversity, that yes, even today in India, if you actually read um, about different states in India, you would understand. And of course, if you travel, of course, it would become even more abundantly clear to you. Nagaland would be so different to Rajasthan. Kashmir is so different to Tamil Nadu or Kerala for that matter. Bihar is so different to Tripura or Assam for that matter. Right, now, the people are different, the races are different, the languages are different, the whole thought process is different. So you cannot herd everyone together. So successful rulers like Chandragupta Maurya and Bindusara and Ashok, these guys must have come up with a different kind of a system. They must have been far more accommodating in terms of understanding that yes, this is what is important, where everyone needs to follow, irrespective of the area or the geography or the culture. And then he would make exception, or rather they would make exceptions in certain areas where they would feel that yes, this could be calibrated, and yes, okay, fine, certain sub parts of Punjab could have this, and it was not important for certain those same rules to be followed by certain parts of Patliputra. That he could afford to have a different kind of a structure and a rule mechanism for present day Uttar Pradesh, and then again going to the Deccan parts of India. So this is something which makes a ruler a successful ruler, and that is the reason why they could reign for such long periods of time. Now, 20 years, 30 years, 35 years, that's exactly the reason. Yes. Okay. Now, administering the empire, and it is unlikely, yes, as we read, because the diversity, and then this, coming to this paragraph. Yes, it is likely that the administrative control was strongest in areas around the capital and the provincial centers. These centers were carefully chosen, both Takshila and Ujjaini being situated on important long distance trade routes, while Suvarnagiri, literally the Golden Mountain, was possibly important for tapping the gold mines of Karnataka. So, as we just discussed, definitely different areas had to be treated and dealt with differently. You could not have the same mechanism executed and implemented in all parts of the geography. It would become extremely difficult, and because there would be a lot of administrative issues which would come up, and that would become very difficult to govern. Okay. uh, and in this paragraph, it is obvious that the army was an important means for ensuring the latter, that is basically about ensuring peace within the empire. Okay. Now, this needs to be understood, that even someone like Ashoka, who was into Buddhism and who was into non-violence, peace, respect for the neighbors and the neighboring kingdoms, even he did not disband his army. He understood the significance of army. He did not. He might have pruned the numbers of his soldiers to some extent. Okay, that is possible, surely. But then he did not disband it, or he did not bring the numbers or reduce the numbers to such an extent where the whole territorial integrity of his empire would be threatened. So he understood that that peace would prevail only if it is also supported by the military might of the Magad Empire. Okay. And Megasthenes mentions a committee with six subcommittees for the this is not yes for military activity, as we just saw that Ashoka understood the significance and the enormous contribution of his army and his military forces to preserve the territorial integrity of his empire. Now, Ashoka also tried to hold his empire together by propagating Dhamma, the principles of which, as we have seen, were simple and virtually universally applicable. This, according to him, would ensure the well-being of people in this world, and the next special officers known as the Dhamma Mahamatta were appointed to spread the message of Dhamma. So, Ashoka he clearly understood that Buddhism, of course, but it was not something which was what he was talking about. Dhamma was not something that was unheard of or something which was new to the culture and civilization of India. Dhamma had been taken from Dharma, which had been there for thousands and thousands of years. So he understood that yes, what he was talking about was not something very, very unique. He was just trying to ensure that the people within his kingdom, the people within his empire understood the significance of it, and they just practiced it in their daily lives, because he understood that the principles that he was talking about, the ideals that he was talking about were universal. It was not that you have to be nice to people, or you have to respect the life of others, you have to be truthful, you have to be righteous, you have to be just, pious. Now, these are universal values. You have to respect people. Now, this is universal value. It has nothing to do with Indian civilization in particular, or a particular Buddhism in particular. And this was something which Ashoka understood, and he felt that this could be a great unifying force. Army was, yes, of course, important, but that was good against the enemies, right? If the enemy gets more aggressive, then it was fine. But then he also understood that to, to bring the people who lived within his kingdom together, okay, so that they lived in harmony, they lived in peace, it would be good, it would be better if all of them could be brought under one umbrella of the principles of dharma, which he called Dhamma, which the Buddhists called Dhamma. Thank you.